Alright. Let's do worst teachers in the world.
We've all had bad teachers. Maybe they yell too much, or perhaps they
Mm-hmm.
too harshly. However, our list of the worst teachers in the world will put even the most terrible teacher to shame. Teachers are people, and therefore will make mistakes, but this list of 15 teachers takes these mistakes to the extreme. Join us as we go through what they did and how it cost them their jobs. Our 15th worst teacher took motivating her students to do well on tests a little too far. It's bad enough to receive a failing grade. Looking at all the X's and reading is pretty demoralizing.
Come on, guys.
This teacher took an extra
Okay, guys.
step and attached a McDonald's application. Process may have been that this motivated students to work harder, so they would end up working harder for the rest of their lives. Unfortunately, the teacher
Sorry about that.
They quickly brought it to the attention of the administration, and the teacher was reprimanded. The 14th worst teacher on our list.
Come on.
High school in Birmingham, Alabama. Mr. Harrison taught geometry class. He repeatedly used unique scenarios with his students, having them calculate different angles of lens. Mr. Harrison consistently used the hypothetical assassination of the then United States President Barack Obama in his scenarios. Many citizens of the South may not vote for Obama, but this is a step beyond. Mr. Harrison was investigated by the FBI. Many hours of diversity training and made a public apology. Regardless of what you teach or who you voted for in a political election, it's probably best not to teach a bunch of high schoolers the trajectory angle for an assassination of the president. I'm pretty sure the FBI also agrees with us. For our 13th worst teacher, we'll be heading across the Atlantic to Suffolk, England, where a teacher at Sudbury Upper School chose a angry and cringeworthy way to try and be tough in front of his students. The class was being rowdy, and Mr. Rouse couldn't get them to quiet down, so he did the only thing he could think of. He ripped off his shirt and threw it to the ground. This did have the desired effect for a few moments, until the class broke out in yells and laughter. One student had filmed the whole incident and posted it on the internet. Not only had Mr. Rouse committed indecent exposure in front of a classroom full of teenagers, but he even threatened to throw a kid out the window. It wasn't long until word of the incident reached the administration. Mr. Rouse was immediately fired. He's no longer allowed to work in Suffolk County. Bullying is all too common in schools, regardless of if you're at a fancy prep school or an underfunded public school. There will always be kids bullying kids. But our 12th worst teacher didn't just let the kids do the bullying, she participated in it herself. In Overton Elementary School in Chicago, a computer science teacher asked a 7-year-old girl to pose for a picture. This alone was shady, but what the teacher did with the picture was even worse. The student had done her hair in braids that she had seen in a magazine. The teacher decided it'd be funny to post a picture to Facebook, so that all of her Facebook friends could laugh and make fun of the girl's hair. Another parent, who was the teacher's friend on Facebook, saw the post and reported it immediately. People on Facebook were mocking the 7-year-old's hairstyle. The evidence was saved on a CD and then shown to the administration. This is one time justice was served to a cyberbully. That bully just happened to be a teacher. And speaking of making kids feel bad, this next teacher went out of their way to crush some young students' dreams. As the holidays approached, one teacher took it upon herself to inform her students that Santa Claus isn't real. She adamantly told the children in her class that it was their parents and not Santa who brought them presents each year. In one day, this teacher was able to crush the hopes and dreams of the 7-year-old children in her classroom. Sure, they would have found out eventually that Santa Claus isn't real, but it probably wasn't the teacher's responsibility to drop a bombshell like that in the middle of an elementary school classroom. Our 10th worst teacher comes from Hillcrest Elementary School in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. Miss McElhaney didn't make this list because of what she did to the students of her school, but instead what she did to the other teachers. Miss McElhaney created a hostile work environment at the school by sending excessive amounts of inappropriate emails to the other teachers. It was documented that over the course of the year, she spent around 60 hours of work time emailing other teachers about her drug and alcohol use, her sex life, and how much she disliked her job. She did this using the school's email, which wasn't very smart. In her emails, she insulted other staff members, students, and parents. This all happened while she was supposed to be teaching and working. She even opened her own personal pharmacy and offered to share her drugs with the other teachers at the school. She made the other teachers so uncomfortable that in the middle of the year, she was escorted from the building and forced to resign. We're now in the single digits of the worst teachers in the world, with number 9, Mr. Mantell from Brick Township High School in New Jersey lost his cool. And by lost his cool, we mean he really lost it. A student in his class caught him on video yelling and cursing at students, demanding they stand quietly during the national anthem. As a rule of thumb, teachers are not supposed to use profanity in the classroom, but Mantell was recorded using some very intense language. When one of the students did not stand and instead sat quietly saying it was his First Amendment right not to rise for the national anthem, Mantell yelled in the student's face. He then kicked the chair out from under the student, causing him to go crashing to the floor. After the video was released, more students came forward saying that this was not the first time Mantell showed intense anger. In fact, this was a regular occurrence. Regardless of if a teacher believes everyone should stand for the national anthem or not, screaming and kicking out chairs from other students is one way to make the worst teachers in the world list. Our 8th teacher is a little more peculiar. She claims students took advantage of her leporophobia. You might not believe what happened next. Leporophobia is not the fear of leprosy or even the fear of leopards. No, leporophobia is the fear of rabbits. Miss Marion taught geography at a high school in Vector, Germany. It was here she took teenage students to court
rabbits
for defamation. Apparently, students found out about her fear of rabbits and drew a rabbit on the chalkboard. When Marion saw the drawing, she ran out of the classroom screaming and crying. This happened on multiple occasions, so Marion took the teenage students to court, which inevitably caused immense stress on the students who were still maturing. It's one thing to reprimand students for making bad decisions, even if it is only drawing a rabbit on the chalkboard. It's an entirely different thing to drag teenage high schoolers to the courtroom and have them stand trial. This brings us to our 7th worst teacher in the world. We all remember talking to our friends at school when we weren't supposed to. Yes, students can be chatty, but teachers have ways of dealing with the chattiness and bringing the attention of the class back to the lesson. However, a teacher at New Renaissance Middle School chose a unique and inappropriate way to stop a student from talking. The teacher taped the student's mouth shut. Apparently, she had asked the student to stop talking, which the student did. However, later in the class, the student started chatting again. The teacher came behind the student and forced tape over her mouth. The student was told to keep the tape on, but when she had a cough, she removed it. The teacher ripped off another piece from the dispenser and applied it to the student's mouth. After an investigation into the teacher's actions, it was found that this was not the first time she had taped a student's mouth shut, but after she resigned, it would be the last. A lot of the teachers on this list so far have done some pretty awful things, but none of them compare to what these next teachers did. Students called it 2 teachers, 1 chair. It was a Spirit Week rally at Churchill High School in Winnipeg when the physical education teacher decided to give a colleague a full-on lap dance. This happened in the middle of the gymnasium as 100 students watched. Some were as young as 13 years old. But regardless of age, this was probably the most inappropriate Spirit Week activity that could have been concocted. Our 5th worst teacher in the world takes cultural insensitivity to a whole new level. You won't believe what she did to her nursery school kids. Miss Davies of Hafford Primary School sometimes sprayed the kids with air freshener. This is an odd thing for a teacher to do, but it gets worse. Miss Davies humiliated children who were no more than 6 years old by spraying them with aerosol and smelling onions or curry. This clearly was focused toward her Bangladeshi students, whose traditional cuisine consisted of these aromas. She would tell the kids, "There's a waft coming in from paradise," before she sprayed them with the air freshener. Little kids can smell, especially if they have an accident. But spraying them with air freshener is not appropriate, and spraying specific kids based on a curry or onion smell is just racist. Luckily, the school board agreed, and Miss Davies was fired over child protection concerns. Being a teacher is stressful. There's no arguing against that fact. However, the way that a teacher handles the stress needs to be appropriate and should never be taken out on the kids. Unfortunately, teacher number 4 on our list, Miss May, did just this. She lost her cool on a student who would not focus and kept calling her names. If you're about to lose it, the appropriate thing to do is step away and remember that the students are just kids. This is not what Miss May did. Instead, when the student banged a glue stick down on their desk, Ms. May took it and did the same thing right back, except she slammed the glue stick down on the student's hand, cutting it open. Ms. May regretted her actions, but hurting a student is up there with the worst things a teacher can do. This brings us to our top 3 worst teachers in the world. Each one will shock you more than the last. Students are warned every year in health class that they should stay away from drugs and alcohol. However, Miss Sprach at Proper Charter School in Pittsburgh went a different way with these substances. Miss Sprach was caught giving alcohol to minors. It started when she threw a party at her own home and invited teenagers from her class. The weirdest part might have been that one of the teenagers present was her own 14-year-old son. She encouraged the students to get drunk and have a good time. This escalated to a point where high school boys no longer felt comfortable and left.
Alright guys, I'm sorry about that again.
They ended up Crawford County police who charged Brock with providing alcohol to minors, along with corruption and engagement of minors. Needless to say, after Sprock served her sentence, she was not welcome back as a teacher. As seen previously, alcohol and teachers don't always go well together, especially when the teacher is drunk during class. In a California school, Miss Neff was found teaching her middle school class while drunk. Not only was her behavior odd because of the alcohol, but she had combined her drinking with prescription drugs. These two narcotics mixed in her system, rendering her completely inoperable as a teacher. She was taken to the school nurse, where she waited until the police arrived. They escorted her to the hospital, and once she recovered, the police arrested her and took her to jail. We now have reached the top of our list. Although no drugs were involved, what this next teacher did may make you think they were on something. A teacher at Lay Church of England Junior School in Manchester, England, definitely took things too far in his classroom. He is ranked the worst teacher on our list because he locked a kid in a closet. But wait, it gets worse. The student had a learning disability called dyspraxia that would affect his motor skills, speech, and made learning more difficult. Any normal teacher would do their best to support the student any way they could. However, this is not what the teacher did. Instead, the teacher at Lay Church of England felt the student was not writing fast enough in class. So, as punishment, the teacher locked him in the closet. The student could not help that he was writing slowly because of his disability. The teacher was punishing the student for something he had no control over. The student later recounted being locked in the closet multiple times, sometimes for over an hour. Locking an 11-year-old kid with a disability in a closet is definitely the way to get yourself at the top of the worst teachers in the world list. Now go check out worst punishments kids received from their parents, or watch.
I see you guys on my fifth one, so I see you then.